It's 7:08, and you know what? This budget deal that Washington struck, and John Boehner has spent the last 48 hours basically bashing his contemporaries in the GOP for criticizing it. You know what? It's without being just completely rude, I guess I could say Washington, it's a winter fantasy land this time of year, and it seems to me that this would be a good time for the GOP to try to get their stuff together, but they're not doing it. And you know what? I think it's simply because they just don't pay attention to what their constituents are saying, and that goes for both sides of the aisle. That's not a complete, sort of critique of just the GOP or just the Democrats. Washington just doesn't get it sometimes. And here in Mississippi, we have a state senator by the name of Chris McDaniel that just happens to be running for U.S. Senate next year, joining us this morning again. And Chris, thanks for taking time to join the program this morning. Do you think that Washington has just lost it on this one?
Absolutely. Washington has once again proven that it's not listening to the people of this state. It's a terrible idea. It's one of those old Washington concepts that we spend now and save later. But the savings never comes because they're not listening. And the reason they're not listening is because they've created a political aristocracy where they don't feel like they have to listen. But yeah, going back to this Ron Murray deal, it's a really, really bad deal for conservatives.
Yeah, this was put together so people understand. This week by Republican Representative Paul Ryan and Democrat Senator Patty Murray. They agreed to a budget deal for next year that increases federal discretionary spending to over $1 trillion next year. Where's that money going to come from?
Well, that's just it. It's not going to come from anywhere unless we borrow it or unless we print more of it, which is exactly the wrong direction. This country is $17 trillion in debt. That's a lot of money by anybody's standard. And if you look at the unfunded liabilities over the next few years, it's probably closer to $90 trillion in debt. And yet Washington keeps kicking the can down the road. Nothing in this bill addressed the long-term problems that we've got.
Right.
Nothing in the deal addressed entitlement reform, which is what it's going to take to make sure we're squared away. Instead, it spends more and it taxes more. And that's a bad deal for the American people.
Yeah, and we're the ones footing the bill on it, and there are others that are footing the bill too. Tell me, Chris, how it is that you view sequestration's role in this stuff too. What kind of help us tie that together, if you would?
Well, at the very least, what sequestration gave us was modest cuts across the board, and it assisted us in bringing down deficit spending, at least temporarily.
Right.
What we have now is just the opposite. We've basically gone back on the promises they made just a few years ago, increasing spending, and then telling us that they're going to actually decrease spending and start saving at about 2022 or 2023, which is a really odd formulation for our Congress to behave, because there's nothing this Congress can do to keep a future Congress in check. And you know as well as I do that once they pass this, they're just politically grandstanding, trying to save their elections. And what they're hoping for is that Congress 10 years from now will do the job they should be doing right now. And that's just bad policy.
It is bad policy, and it's a weak game plan. You know, isn't this an opportunity for the GOP to distance itself from the standard old procedure in Washington to increase spending now and promise that we're going to reduce the deficit later? Shouldn't the GOP, isn't this the opportune moment to be aggressive about this? But they're instead playing to a broader spectrum than that elected them. You're right, they're trying to save their butts here.
They are. This is the perfect moment and the perfect time in history to do exactly what we're supposed to be doing as Republicans and as conservatives. And that is, the party I joined years ago, the party I fell in love with, was a party of fiscal responsibility. It was a party of liberty. It was a party that knew what a balanced budget was, and they fought to make it so. This party's more concerned about their re-elections, and they're more concerned about playing games. And the sad thing is, yeah, sure, they're focused on 2014, but at what cost? At what cost? What the people of this country need is principle. What they need are people willing to fight for their belief systems. And what they need is a Congress that, for a change, will actually listen to the will of the American people. And we haven't had that in an awfully long time, which explains our $17 trillion debt.
Well, it does. I just as a question, just from you, because I know you're paying attention to it. What comments have Mississippi's senatorial and congressional delegation made about this deal?
Well, there haven't been a lot of comments from the from the representatives. However, perhaps the most disappointing comment came from Senator Cochran. He was asked Wednesday about this deal, and the answer to any question regarding the Ron Murray deal should be very, very easy for any conservative.
Right.
And that is, there's no way we can support this deal.
Right.
A lot of reasons for that, but there's no way we can support it. Senator Cochran responded, I hope I don't have to. In other words, I hope I don't have to vote on it. I don't know what that means. Either we're going to lead in the state or we're not. We're going to be men and women of principle or we're not. The idea that he doesn't know how he's going to vote on the deal tells you how disconnected he is to the real problems this country is facing. There is no greater threat to our national security than the national debt. And instead of addressing it, he seems to be wanting to pass the buck to the next generation. He says he hopes he doesn't have to. Well, he should want to vote against this bill. He should be fighting against this bill. I'm not sure what he's doing, but that's very disappointing.
Yeah, I think that doesn't represent the people of Mississippi very well. You can say what you want to about it, but that's my observation about it. It's 7:15 at News Radio. Senator Chris McDaniel from Ellisville is on with us. Real quick, we got about a minute left. Chris, tell us your thoughts about Senator Cochran finally announcing that he is actually going to rerun for his Senate seat. What do you think about that?
Well, no surprises from our standpoint. He's been in Washington for 41 years. That's all he's ever done. It's all he's ever known. So he was running from our standpoint until he said that he wasn't going to run. So we always thought he was going to be in the race. We want to have a fair and firm discussion on his record as well as the record of the Congress over the last 40 years. And what we've seen is this. We've seen a Congress that's made the same mistakes over and over and over again. We've seen failed leadership in that Congress over and over and over again. And it's time for Mississippians to recognize that we can't keep doing the same things politically and expecting different results. Change is needed, one way or the other. Change has to come from Washington, D.C., and that begins with sending new blood and new energy to Washington, D.C., people that will fight for principle, people that will stand up for their belief system, and who aren't afraid to do the right thing, even if sometimes it may be politically unpopular. So we're excited about the race. We want it to be a race on his record. We want to get out there and debate and discuss it, and I look forward to any debate or discussion he'll give me.
I understand. Chris McDaniel, Mississippi State Senator. Chris, running for United States Senate against Thad Cochran in the upcoming midterm elections. Chris, what's a good way for folks to get a hold of you and find out more about what you got going on?
The website's always a good place. It's McDaniel 2014, www.McDaniel2014.com. And, man, we're just excited. We're looking forward to touching at least and meeting every Mississippian we can. And from every place we've been, from Tupelo all the way down to Pascagoula, people are receptive, they're ready for change, they're energized, they're excited, and they recognize we are fighting to restore the greatness of this republic. And this is not the time to equivocate. It's not the time to be soft on these issues. It's time to stand and be firm, and we're excited about the fights ahead.
Senator Chris McDaniel, thanks for your time this morning, sir. I hope you have a blessed weekend, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Anytime.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. We look forward to hearing from you again very soon.